Hi, I am Alejandro Manga, a dual degree PhD candidate at the Program of Communication, Culture and Media of Drexel University and in Urban Planning at Université Gustave Eiffel. I want to acknowledge the financial support of En Ville, who finance the European part of my fieldwork. This presentation about the Bikespace of Greater Geneva was prepared for Cycling and Society 2021. It is part of an ongoing work on visual and mobile methods to capture what I call the bike space. It will be mostly video-based. I will start by discussing a couple of theoretical elements, kinopolitical constellations, and the bike space before submerging ourselves through video in a visual exploration of what I call the Bikespace of Geneva, seen from my own perspective. My theoretical framework is partly built around the idea of kinopolitical constellations. It draws from Macy power geometries, McFarlane's translocal assemblages, and Creswell kinopolitics. Drawing from Cheller's work, I argue that these constellations have scale. At the embodied level, I think of them in relative terms, influenced by Deleuze and Bergson, as collapsing the past and present as we move through space. For instance, my own experience of mobility when cycling is influenced by the sense of pride that I have in cycling because I grew up in Bogota, the capital of semi-failed state, and I started commuting to school at 30-kilometer round trip on the newly minted cyclepaths that changed the perception that I had of the city. I also argue that this is only one viewpoint among many when I share the bike space. There is a multiplicity of them over one same event, like what cycling means to each body in movement. I argue that the aggregate of these constellations makes up a système vélo, as the French call it, or a system of velomobility as it is known in English-speaking literature. I define the bike space inspired by Lefebvre's spatial triad and Sorge's third space. Indeed, I consider it a form of mobile third space centered around the bike. The bike space is an assemblage, an imagined place composed of those spaces inhabited by bike communities in stasis or movement, like workshops or critical masses. It also influences our experience of space, whether conceiving it with planner's tools, espace conçu, living through it as we move along, espace vécu, or perceiving it through our feelings and emotions, espace perçu. I want to introduce the territory of my research, the Greater Geneva. I use the word territory, which is used both in French and Spanish-speaking literature and is somehow absent or not translatable to English. Here, I focus mostly on the spaces between the two community organizations with which I participate, En Ville Vélo on the French side of the border and Bicyclette Bleue on the Swiss side. The visual exploration includes the voie verte, the newly minted transnational bike path that links central Geneva with the French suburb of Annemasse, where I live. Note that the Google representation includes an estimate of the length of the ride, 28 minutes, and also the national border. This is a representation made from a landscape architecture perspective of that same voie verte. It focuses on aesthetic elements, types of urban tissues, and areas of conflicts and sociabilities. As you will see from the next slide onwards, my focus is going to be on the socialities of cycling, which is also the topic of a chapter that I co-wrote with Simon Butterbury for the upcoming Routledge Cycling Companion edited by Peter Cox and Glenn Norcliffe. I want to focus on the experience of riding and the emotional aspect of it. This is the first of the bike spaces that I want to show to you. It is pre-pandemic footage from En Ville Vélo during an apéro de montage. Community gathers together for drinks and music while disassembling bikes for spares. I will now show you the voie verte on the French side of the border. The French mayor has insisted on keeping the barriers to avoid motor scooters coming into the space. I have had drunk accidents because of them, and so I am no big fan. Notice also there is pavement for both bicycles and for pedestrians. This cycle path is built over the suburban train line, the Le Mans Express, which links central Geneva with Annemasse, the main suburb on the French side. It was inaugurated in 2019. When I cross the bridge that marks the border, the infrastructure changes. On the Swiss side, the pedestrian path is a dirt path, while the cycle path is built with pavement. Children with wheel toys prefer to play on the pavement side of the voie verte. It creates conflicts because of the lack of foresight by the planners. Notable points are train stations such as this one in Cherbourg. This is how the Bicyclette Bleue represents its own Bikespace of Geneva, in a very playful manner. In this slide, I interview one of my friends and colleagues of la Bicyclette Bleue after 7 p.m. when we close the workshop.
On filme comme ça les vélos de la Bicyclette Bleue, puis c'est ça la mécanique de vélo, quand on peut se permettre de finir la journée, à sauter dans le Rhône, sans avoir perdu le téléphone.
Saute du coup?
Oui.
Ah ouais. Attends, moi je sais pas comment vous avez... Ok. 1, 2, 3.
Colin, est-ce que tu veux nous parler sur la création de la Bicyclette Bleue, s'il te plaît?
Eh ben, la Bicyclette Bleue, tout a commencé à l'université. On était en train tous de faire nos travaux de mémoire et on s'est dit, vu que nous n'avons plus de cours mais le travail de mémoire, on a un peu de temps pour faire d'autres choses à côté. On a décidé de participer au programme Jinx de l'université de Genève et on a gagné. C'était un programme qui soutenait des projets en lien avec le développement durable de manière très générale. Et du coup, on a participé à ce concours. En une semaine, on a monté le projet de la Bicyclette Bleue sur un modèle de quelque chose qui existait déjà un peu à Lausanne. Donc on n'a rien inventé concrètement. On a juste vu que c'était quelque chose qui manquait complètement à Genève. Donc la Bicyclette Bleue là-bas. Et on a fini 3e du concours, donc on a gagné un peu d'argent, 4000 francs avec lesquels on a commencé à faire nos premiers vélos, une vingtaine de vélos. Qu'on a mis en service, c'était quand? C'était dès la rentrée, donc 8 mois plus tard environ. Le temps de tout monter, la structure associative, de réparer les vélos, de trouver le système de location. Et ben ça fait maintenant 3 ans que ça dure. On a emménagé dans ce super nouveau local, plutôt bien placé. Donc les locations augmentent toujours. On est maintenant, je pense, à peu près 150 locations. Et on a maintenant l'atelier qui est ouvert à l'autoréparation et aussi un service d'atelier mobile. Donc on se déplace par exemple dans les maisons de quartier. Et on déploie, on a quelques outils, des trépieds.
One way that the Bicyclette Bleue gets funded is by providing territorial animation with funny bikes and music during special events in the canton of Geneva. We meet and get ready for the critical mass à la Bicyclette Bleue.
Ah oui, le Ricard. Oh, du Ricard, c'est magnifique, du Ricard. Bah, c'est parfait ça.
Tu vas mettre ça dans ta recherche?
Bah oui, en fait, c'est les socialités du vélo. Sociabilité du vélo, il a tout compris. Voilà. Hey! Bah, tu sais que c'est pour mon doctorat tout ça?
Ah bah je vois que tu travailles dur, c'est bien, bravo.
Bah c'est bien de dire que je peux faire un doctorat en filmant des gens qui font du vélo.
Ouais, c'est
Il y a pire que ça. Bon, je te regarde travailler.
C'est pourquoi le petit film?
Ça c'est pour Cycling and Society. En fait, l'argument c'est qu'au-delà de faire de l'infrastructure, il faut développer tout l'aspect social du vélo. Ouais. Et donc ta façon de concevoir le vélo change la politique de vélo que tu fais et la façon comme la politique elle est mise en place.
Trop bien, c'est super. Mais c'est dans le cadre de
Oui.
thèse ou quoi?
Oui, c'est pour la thèse tout ça.
Je vais juste tirer la colonne, je demandais, parce que je la rappelle vachement.
C'est bon, si c'est pour la critical, c'est...
Tu as la critical?
Ouais. Merci. Et bravo pour ce que vous faites pour la petite. Bien.
Oui.
Ça se passe pour le vélo et le vélo. Du coup, alors je vais t'expliquer.
Attends, je vais chercher une bière. C'est 5 francs de plus par mois. Si tu prends 4 mois, ça fera 55 francs. 5 mois, 60 francs.
While our friend preaches about bikes on national TV, I do the same with a beer on hand.
Quelle star.
Oui. Le vélo, en fait, ça vient... Tu vas avoir un beau vélo, ça fait partie du jeu. Mais pourquoi est-ce que tu fais la promotion du vélo? Et après, tu vas t'apercevoir que c'est des gens qui ont viennent plutôt de familles aisées, plutôt de gauche. Des fois, il y a des ruptures de vie. Comme par exemple, des un paquet d'ingénieurs qui en ont eu marre d'être ingénieurs, des familles conservatrices. Et ben, ils arrêtent et ils montent un atelier vélo. Donc, Yuri, il rentre dans le paquet.
This slide will show the critical mass at play with its playfulness and confidence.
Ça c'est 2000 francs d'amende.
2000 francs d'amende.
Ça va? Ouais, il en faut, il en faut.
On les rattrape.
Sometimes constellation crash. While we were riding on our constellation, having fun while talking about advocacy and research, a migrant woman fell off her bike. She was there as a cheap way of having leisure time, riding on her own constellation, accompanied by her husband. While we shared this mobile bike space, I stopped to help deviate traffic. I offered help in Spanish, then realized she was Colombian. I stayed to help and translate. She asked me to keep the police out of it. Unfortunately, while a fellow mechanic provided first aid, The police court also stopped and launched an official procedure. She was given an alcohol test and asked about her migration status. I had to translate while the lady admitted that she had been undocumented in Switzerland for 3 years. She had a deep cut in the leg that required surgery. She was taken to the hospital and was asked to show in court for her accident and her immigration status. Unfortunately, deportation procedures are likely to be started against her. Thus, within the Bikespace coexist different constellations with different levels of privilege, facing different barriers to mobility because of ability or immigration status.